to Infrastructure Week 2024. I'm Representative Rick Larson. I'm the ranking member of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. And every day is Infrastructure Day on the committee. And we are working to deliver transformational infrastructure all over the country, helping communities build and rebuild our nation's roads, bridges, highways, transit systems, the ferry systems, ports and rail, and our water infrastructure. It's also important that as we make these investments, that safety is the number one thing on our minds. And that is why today I've asked Jennifer Homendy, the chair of the National Transportation Safety Board, to join me here for Infrastructure Week. Jennifer, can you tell me a little bit more about your role as chair, but also remind folks what the NTSB is all about?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So our infrastructure reliably gets people and products where they need to go on our roads, bridges, railroads, ports, airports, and pipeline. And when there are accidents, crashes, or other significant events, that's when the NTSB steps in. So our entire role as an independent federal agency is to determine what happened, how it happened, to prevent it from reoccurring. In other words, it's to save lives. So for my part, my number one job is to be there for the families and the victims, for the communities where these incidents occur. And that's why safety is so important and why the NTSB is so important, because our mission saves lives.
That's great. And I want to thank you for sharing that. It really puts a finer point on why transportation safety is essential. A couple of things, something that was a turning point in my life was the tragic Olympic pipeline explosion that happened in June of 1999 in Bellingham, Washington, a little over a year before I became a member of Congress. But that explosion released 237,000 gallons of liquid fuel into Whatcom Creek, and it also claimed the lives of two young boys as well as a young 18-year-old young man. But in response to the event, I fought for pipeline safety, and I've been able to be part of writing the pipeline safety bill every 2 to 4 years since that time, and really tried to emphasize in my leadership on the committee the importance of safety in all modes of transportation. What was the turning point for you and set you on a path to be thinking about transportation safety and its importance?
Yeah, so these accidents and crashes and events certainly stay with you, and they are powerful reminders of why we do the work that we do at the NTSB, and that you do the work you do in Congress. An experience that contributed to my passion for safety was a pipeline explosion in South Riding, Virginia. A family was spending the first night in a brand new home when an electric spark set off a natural gas explosion, resulting in a fire that killed the mother and very severely injured the father and their two children. So part of what stayed with me is that the NTSB made common sense recommendations to improve pipeline safety, such as setting standards for how far apart gas service lines should be from electrical service lines, and then requiring installation of what was low-cost valves in distribution pipelines that enter homes to prevent them from exploding if there's a break or release in the pipeline. So when my work on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee before I came to the NTSB was really to make sure those standards were implemented through legislation. But I am familiar very much with the Bellingham tragedy. I had spoken with the family many times of the 18-year-old, and still to this day, they talk about their work with the NTSB and our family assistance team and how much it meant to them after such a terrible loss.
Thanks, Jennifer, for giving us your, showing us your personal experience and why this is an important job to you and what you fall back on when you think about the things you have to do at NTSB. The stakes are high when it comes to transportation safety. I think that's really clear, which is why we need strong investments in transportation safety, as well as advocacy to maintain America's gold standard in safety in all modes of transportation. Can you walk me through how your agency investigates incidents and accidents and ultimately makes recommendations?
So people may be aware of our work investigating the highest profile incidents like the Norfolk Southern train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, or the Alaska Airlines Flight 1282 door plug that detached mid-flight, and most recently the Francis Scott Key Bridge striking and collapse. But we actually handle over 2,000 domestic and 450 foreign cases each year. And, while the bigger cases have garnered a lot of attention, and with good reason, each case helps us in our critical safety mission and helps everyone improve transportation safety. Once we have answers as to why something failed, we can make recommendations to anybody, whether that's a regulatory body within the Department of Transportation, even OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or a state, or we might have recommendations to a fire services agency. Or sometimes we provide technical assistance or recommendations and testimony to Congress, all to implement change to improve safety.
Yeah, and we've seen some of those recommendations come to Congress, and we've turned some of those into law, and some of those we're still working on as well. So speaking of change, the bipartisan infrastructure law represented really game-changing investments in our infrastructure. It's improving bridge safety, as for instance, it's making airport terminals and tarmacs safer. It's making ports safer for workers. It's making transit safer for riders. The list does go on, but one of the biggest areas that we need to improve upon is roadway safety. It's a big emphasis on highway safety. Our roads are deadly. Too many people are getting killed each year, and that number is maintained at a pretty high level. We need to really bring those numbers down. How is the NTSB helping us understand roadway safety and improve roadway safety?
We're in the midst of a national public health crisis. 95% of transportation deaths occur on our nation's roads. We often refer to federal numbers collected by the DOT on deaths and injuries, but those are just on public roads. If you look at broader numbers compiled by the National Safety Council, we're talking over 44,000 people died in 2022 on all roads, in parking lots, whether they're public roads or private roads, and that's unacceptable. Our goal at the NTSB is always zero, and a lot of people say we'll never get to zero. We should shoot for some other realistic number, but what would that realistic number be? Would we say 20,000? Because what we're talking about here are families, there are coworkers, our friends. So it becomes very clear to us that zero is the only answer, which is why we've adopted the safe system approach. And part of the safe system approach is ensuring that we have safe infrastructure, whether that's roads or transit infrastructure. So as you mentioned, there are hundreds of billions of dollars being invested in our infrastructure. That is certainly part of a safe system, and also having a strong safety culture will be critical to ensuring our systems are built and rebuilt to prevent transportation injuries and deaths throughout communities.
That's great. Yeah, what number is low enough? Zero is low enough, right? That's the number. Well, thanks for sharing more about how we can tackle this complex safety challenge and save lives. How will you be, this is the final question, how will you be celebrating Infrastructure Week?
Advocating for infrastructure investments to make our transportation system safer for travelers, for workers, and for the environment.
That's great. Well, I can certainly sign on to that. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me, Chair Jennifer Hamady of the National Transportation Safety Board. Please extend my thanks to your entire team for the great work that they're doing all over the country, and in fact, sometimes the world. You're helping other folks out too, so we appreciate that.